after getting destroyed in the opening game. Now Perks on the Draven with the Klepto in the bot lane, 2 teleports on the side of G2, 2 on the side of SK Telecom.
And the very first thing I want to draw our attention to is the Akali rune choices for Caps. The last time he played up against the Sylas, I believe it was against Jensen, and he showcased what he can do on this champion. Or it may have been, I remember he went up against the Sylas. Who played it? I can't quite recall. Point is, he goes for a Liandry's build second, and he grabs himself the Conqueror. His whole goal is to match up against the Sylas on a side lane and out DPS in like a sustained manner.
And zooming out, what I want to draw attention to is the priority, the P word I'll say for this one, because we talked about how SKT had multiple priority lanes. They just kind of whacked G2 in the face with that really allowed that kind of earlier victory over the Sona Taric. This game, SKT doesn't have that level of priority. You love the Nico into the Hecarim. Akali and Sylas actually gone both ways this tournament, but I think both of them have tools, so it'll be intriguing to watch. And outside of, if Zion Rakan can pull off shenanigans level 1, I think Draven and Morgana should have a lot of answers level 2 onwards. So on paper, a lot for Jankos to work with on the G2 side.
Pretty excited to see the Hail of Blades on Teddy as well. Gives you a little bit more laning power because you get those feathers out that bit quicker, and then you can set up for the root much earlier on. So it just makes that early game a little bit better, especially against a Draven who's looking for early priority, as Papa Smithy was saying.
Well, you mentioned Draven. Of course, the man on your screen there is not Perks' Draven. That is Nico. Wonder going up against Khan. This is one of the most anticipated matchups. And Wonder quite famously said in a few interviews that Khan was underperforming. I'll choose my words nicely. Some of the stats you're seeing there is the group stage performance, where you can see Wonder does have it up on CSD, but lower kills plus assists. And surprisingly, Khan gets a lot of jungle proximity attention. While we take a look at that, Mata and Teddy are being forced back. Very good trade in favor of G2.
Even at level 1, this one Teddy loses out on. Brawling across the map as mid lane also getting started. The Vi path always intriguing to see. Clid was super active on Vi in spite of her kind of level 6 reputation. So we'll see if any level 3-4 ganks from Clid can come to fruition.
I'm looking at where Clid could potentially look to gank. Mid lane is an option, but of course, once Caps has the Shroud, that naturally becomes a little bit harder. On top of that, the top lane, while he does have priority, there's not that much setup with the Hecarim, which means that I feel Clid is very much waiting for his level 6 once he's got the ultimate, and then he can be the setup for his laners to then follow up.
Well, we need to see, because there's still a little bit of setup time before any of these teams get involved. We saw Wonder really shoving in early into Khan, as is expected. Khan taking a lot of auto attack damage, needing to deal with those Tangle Bobs and the Blooming Burst. I thought for a second Jankos may fancy his chances against the flashless top laner, but he decided to clear the Scuttle Crab, and is now making his way top. He'll find Clid in a second.
There's no way for a Hecarim to have priority in this lane. He should only really walk up to either fake a gank or go for a gank with his Ignite, which of course is the trade for something like the Flash or the Ghost. Clid is here anyway. Seeing this actually pulled off successfully, it seems like more of a counter game from Clid.
Love the mini-map ping there from Clid, putting the question mark on top of Raptors and saying, hey, Faker, there's a potential that Jankos is clearing this camp right now, so just be aware of a potential gank.
All right, manages to smite away the big Krug. Busy power charging for Vi, decides to go away. All right, Jankos and Clid going toe-to-toe. No movement from the mid lane yet, and Khan will just about finish this teleport. Actually, no, I think he got interrupted on the recall. Now some trades in the mid lane and trades in the bot lane. It's a fight in multiple fronts. Ignite has already been used by Mata, and there's no further follow-up, but both SKT's top players now under a lot of pressure from Wonder and Jankos. Wonder, 26 CS to 8.
There's no way for Hecarim to interact. He's got about 300 effective range, so easily outranged by the Nico. Gonna take this opportunity for a back with items. The pain starts to lessen, but it's very much a sliding scale for this Hecarim.
And while Wonder and Caps are actually doing very well in their respective lanes, building up pretty decent lane advantages, the bot lane is actually going in favor of Teddy and Mata as, can't force a flash out from Wonder there.
Yeah, devastating charge deals so much damage. Teleport and Ignite used will get the Summoner spell, so it makes Nico a little bit more gankable the next few minutes. Mickey's gonna flash forward. The Dark Bind didn't connect. Black Shield is doing a lot of work though for Perks. Here comes Jankos. Teddy has already used the flash. Summoner heal still available to him. Gets caught up by the flail and the stun. Here comes the Fault Breaker. Clid jumps in. Denting blows to Mickey's face. First blood is available. One more auto. Clid can't close the difference. Now Mata sitting on that flash still. Gotta be very careful. Those spinning axes doing work. Jankos gets the shield. Clid Clid and Jankos trade lives 1 for 1.
For once, Clid not on point with the flash and just hopelessly chasing for the auto attack that never comes. They do get a trade kill at the end, but it's overall a trade up for G2.
It was a bit of a comedy of errors from both parts, multiple skill shots being missed there from both sides, and it actually started off with Mickey binding a minion rather than his intended target of Teddy. Following that, we saw the chase begin with Jankos' arrival, the counter gank from Clid, and keep your eyes on Mickey, binds the minion right there, can't quite get over, and a lot of damage comes out in favor of Teddy thanks to that Hail of Blades, but of course, he then uses his flash to try and get that kill onto Perks, and this is where we see this very close exchange.
Meanwhile, Clid, they're trying to defensively move towards him, just awkward looking at that final order that would have killed Mickey. When he does pull away, he understands that the moment Sejuani turns on him, he's going to die because Perks and Mickey are under no more threat. It ends up being a trade kill overall.
All right, as we come back into the game, G2 Esports are now up 1,300 gold. The kill was secured by Mickey, which means Perks on his Draven did not manage to cash in, but he has returned to lane with the BF sword versus Teddy sitting on the pickaxe, and SK Telecom using the back timing to their advantages will manage to pick up this Mountain Drake very early on.
And given those priority lanes for G2, SKT need to find small ways to dissuade this game from being one-sided to G2 around the early game. So something like a Mountain Drake against the flow of the game is a nice pickup for them.
So we see a bit of trading in the mid lane.
Baker's got a Sejuani ultimate, which could be massive, and Clid is waiting in the background. I mean, if you add the Sedge ultimate and Assault and Battery, that is a ton of CC, and it looks like that's what Faker and Clid want to do.
So keep your eyes on teleports. Caps' TP is up and ready to be channeled towards the bot side of the map, but Faker and Clid have managed to sneak in unawares. The pings are coming down.
All right, the ward is just about to spot them. Perks with a very reactive flash. Mickey didn't have one available. Faker forced to use his own. That was a respect flash if ever I've seen one. No teleport channeled from Caps. He's going to extend a small CS lead in the mid lane as the laners move back. Also, by the way, Khan left top lane just in case.
And Khan, we haven't mentioned this, but his all-in actually bought him the ability to walk up to the minion wave before he hit level 6 because he was able to blow the flash coming through from Nico. And now he's level 6 and can actually start to close the CS gap that was insane before.
He has got the Ignite back up and is actually in a pretty decent position. You can see 400 is the only real goal gap. But look, Jankos in the bush.
All right, he's going to find out. Clid get a lot of early damage. And Caps has already left the mid lane. Pop Blossom will not stun Khan. Devastating charge into the wall. Tower was not going to be enough. But here comes Caps. He's going to finish the teleports. And I think Khan will give the kill over to Wonder and gets the Summoner Spell trade advantage with the teleport.
So now we're starting to see this Hecker and Perk work very nicely up against the Nico as we see more trading in the bot lane. But nothing really going to come off the back of it. Beautiful stuff from Khan. Finding that solo kill onto Wonder. Having this way back into the game is a much-needed advantage for SKT early on.
And our general read of the comps is that if both sides are firing shots and being answered during the early game, it bodes well for SKT's big engage come team fights. So G2 really need to pull off a play like this where they're setting up for at minimum turret plates, if not a couple of kills.
Extending that gold lead further, Papa Smithy. It's 2,200 gold before 10 minutes. That plate did fall, and Jankos has yet to leave the bottom quadrant of the map. Now starting the recall, may end up conceding his own blue buff.
Would highly recommend viewers at home just keep your eyes on the minimap and just keep watching the pings, because SKT have such good awareness of where the enemy players are. They're pinging out the Morgana, who's not on vision. They keep a good track of Jankos, so they avoid it. The only time they've been caught up so far is when he actually came through the lane towards the bottom side of the map, and Clid couldn't quite respond in time. So it feels like SKT are just kind of reading G2 very well in these early stages of the game.
All right, Clid is waiting for a potential all-in from Wonder. Wonder's Pop Blossom is 2 seconds away, and Flash as well. Here comes Faker too. Jankos is sitting waiting in wings. Pop Blossom comes on, buys some time. Jankos comes in with the ulti. That's a first, but there's a reply already. Clid gets onto the Assault and Battery. Now Jankos trying to put some damage back. Whirling Death will not find its target as it was angled under the tower. A 1-for-1 trade. But it's SKT that had to move first. Look at the minimap, look at the vision. I think G2 are going to be okay with that.
It's just so addictive to watch the cavalry coming on the minimap. Sometimes I catch myself minimap watching when there's action on the main screen, because there was 2 people to outnumber the 3 that was sent by SKT, but the decisiveness only ends up with a trade of 1-for-1. So a lot of tools used, but an overlapping trade.
Yeah, absolutely the case. We can see their caps, by the way, getting a lot of damage onto that mid turret plate, extending the gold lead even further. And I just want to draw your attention to some stats as we crest to the 10-minute mark. I'll do it after the replay.
So here we see Wonder landing a really good route onto Khan and utilizing this as an advantage to actually go for the all-in with Jankos right behind him. I don't think he was going to escape because we can see the Aftershock actually securing the kill from the side of Clid, and the arrival of Faker meant that he was surely going to die, but in a situation that should have been a 1 versus 3, ends up being a 1-for-1, so G2 can be quite happy with that.
Yeah, I wonder if these lane assignments will stay. I'm keeping my eyes on where Faker's going. The Shroud comes down from Caps.
He could have killed him there, but unfortunately he had no information of where Clid was or where Faker was. So he decided not to go for the commit. We're just happy with those small skirmishes, and we're now back to base.
And actually the health trades, when you have double Conqueror and also the Spirit of Dread from the Hecarim, can actually be pretty supreme with the burst damage that both Akali and Hecarim can do. So we're seeing flexible lane assignments.
Yeah.
They do eventually settle on returning Sylas to the mid.
All right, so Wonder is still up 20 CS. I can see Jankos waiting in the wings. That's a flash forward from Cliff. The Assault and Battery finds his target. Perks has got no flash available. The stopwatch buys so much time, and the 2v3 is being turned around. Feathers will not find a route. Flash away from Teddy. He stays alive and avoids Dark Binding, but look at Faker. He's come down from the river, and this time no one dies.
Beautifully well played from the side of G2. Mickey with a quick responsive flash to get the Black Shield on. Enables Perks to walk away from the charm from Mata, and actually being a heavily favored trade for G2.
All right, good trade. He had to start it with Caps being in Fog of War. He's holding on to perfect execution, but Clid is waiting nearby, and that's a good, advantageous health trade. We catch a glimpse once again in the top lane, and Wonder maintains this 25 CS-ish lead.
And while Caps is known for his brawling, that brawl was as Vi had leashed the Ocean Drake. There's no Dragon take here from SKT, and actually G2 looking for more.
All right, there's still 2 minutes before these turret plates drop, and G2 want to extend the lead even further. They've got themselves a teleport coming out of SK Telecom. Jankos has already thrown down the ulti, and Khan has arrived to the fight. There goes Caps. Mata is down. Onslaught of Shadows finds nobody. It's a face plant for Khan. Black Shield will prevent some damage, but here comes Faker. He channeled the TP as well. Wonder remains untouched in the top lane, and he's going to push into some plates as well.
First, have to give props to Teddy. In that situation, he focused on clearing the minion wave rather than going for the fight. You saw how difficult it was for G2 to actually set up that dive because they had no wave to play with. So he bought just enough time to almost turn that in SKT's favor.
And that was with SKT using a lot of resources to try to turn it around and getting nothing. So overall ends up with Wonder getting some free time and maybe a turret plate. The Rift Herald goes to the way of SKT, but the only kill to G2.
So keep your eyes on what Teddy does here. He throws out all these feathers, he's going to pull them back in, and unfortunately, he's just, due to the passive nature of how his feathers work, he's just clearing this wave, clearing this wave. Now, Jankos' ult comes through, G2 no longer have a wave to play around, but Captain's like, you know what, I've had enough of this, I need a kill, and they're looking for more.
Oh, they are indeed. G2 Esports have got a number of plates already with less than a minute to go. It's a 3,000 gold lead, almost the inverse of the previous game. Now, SK Telecom are being pressured as the Dragon is going to be focused. The Jankos ultimate not available. And this tower, I think, a huge props to Teddy and to Mata, who have been holding on to this bottom lane. They will catch up Mata. He's going to be able to get over the wall. And as he dances away from the battle, G2, they've got some pressure in the bot lane, but it's against a Rift Herald, which is picked up by SKT.
Early Merc Treads for Mata enables him to get out of that binding and walk away to safety. Good early purchase in what could be a very difficult matchup.
And I also believe that G2 are playing to the clock a little bit because that Rift Herald won't be channeled in an advantageous spot pre-14 minutes. They're going for a return gank bot side, get some access to the Drake if they want to fall back to it, but it means the Rift Herald charge is going to have to be more strategic rather than just slamming it down for the guaranteed goal.
Also, G2 have the advantage that both their teleports are up, while SKT don't. So playing around bot side means it's way easier for their solo laners to get involved and actually snowball things even further towards G2.
And as we take stock of the situation, a very brief pause, I'll find out the reason for you. This feels good for the series and as an EU caster to see G2 work on some of the big mistakes. I was very nervous after game one. They've come in, they've taken advantage of the strong sides of their map, and they are punishing SK Telecom, but they need to transition into this mid-game where they have shown some great strengths.
And we were speaking off-air about what this sort of a loss in game number one would actually impact G2, and they have that veterancy now, so that's one thing in their corner, but also the manner of the defeat with the kind of surprising Sonatarek opening into that kind of very quickly going sideways. To me, it feels like a very easy game for a mentally resilient player just to scout and say, okay, that one was a little bit creative from us, didn't work out, we tried to freeze some minion waves. Let's just reset for game number 2. And now the team with the onus on them to play early and to get advantages have those advantages. SKT have made some decent counterpunches. And my only takeaway at 14 minutes is that we're set up for a really exciting finish to game number 2.
And what I get excited about is we approach the part in the game where G2 have actually made a lot of mistakes towards the second half of the group. We actually have a quick replay of the fight that we saw earlier. So we draw a lot of attention towards Teddy initially, but I want to draw your attention to Jankos and Caps this time around. They actually come in from the flank and notice that Wonder chooses not to teleport in, even though the engage lands again. There's no minion wave for them to play around. Caps realizes he can go for the flash execute, and he actually wants to make it 2 and thinks, you know what, if I trade 1 for 2 here, this is actually super worth. But then he realizes, oh, I can actually get out of this situation. I can get the TP out from Faker and overall come out ahead.
And the stopwatch is actually necessary from Teddy, otherwise the AoE on that perfect execution could have been a casual double kill on that ability. So needed to use a lot of resources, SKT, and of course, after that replay, no counter kill despite a bit of chase and TP's use.
And this ultimately resulted in G2, as you said, quick shot, sitting on about a 3,000 gold lead right now. And we kind of transition into that mid game where for G2, while they were praised coming into the tournament as this being one of their strongest points, in the second half of the groups, this was actually one of their weakest. When they lost to Phong through Buffalo, it's because they drafted 1-3-1 and they kept team fighting. When they played up against Team Liquid, they kept getting bought into this idea of we need to play more of IG's style. So now, coming into today, the question was, will they clean up their ability to play the mid game, and can they do it against a team like SKT?
Well, game 1 mid game was cleaner than the early game. Let's see what happens in game 2. Just to give you guys an update, the players on stage have reported lag, and league officials are busy investigating the claims. I will give you an update with more information as and when I receive it. I want to throw some numbers at you very quickly, because something that I was trying to set up and trying to work towards was how SK Telecom advance from the stages of the group. The first half of the group, kind of figuring things out, figuring out the tempo of everyone else. Papa Smithy, you very, very convinced that SKT were going to ramp up, scale, and in your mind would adapt to this meta to overcome it. And we're seeing that kind of 2 shades of SKT. The group, the game 1 game felt like round 2, and now we're going to find out what round this game falls into.
And I think, to me, it echoes round 1, because there is a lot of lack of priority here. Scaling is another way to look at it. They don't always intersect, but you can see a late game future for SKT that means that Draven will be trivialized by one of the engaged tools they've drafted multiple of. However, the early game was sacrificed. They've made some counterpunches they haven't rolled over, and I would say that in that first series, when Faker was on more of the Azir champion, the stay mid lane champion that can't brawl as hard around the river or top side, that really played into G2's hands. Now we're on more of a brawling champion who's been able to equalize kind of the overall map pressure. But still, the flare point hasn't come yet. There's a turning point in this game, I would wager, in the next 5 to 6 minutes before Baron spawns, that really sets one team on what feels like a winning trajectory, but we're only seeing the rising action. It hasn't peaked just yet.
And this is what I found fascinating about both these teams, right? Because whenever we've talked about SKT as a team, throughout their history, it's always been, they always get better. They just grow and grow. They're always hungry to improve upon even the smallest of mistakes. And that's why internationally, they were such a massive success for so long. And then you compare that to G2, and many fans look at them and go, well, domestically, they would kind of like win lane and win game, right? And then they got into their finals, and then they absolutely smashed, and people never really got to see this team like develop or grow because it was never needed, right? But when you speak to Grabs and when you speak to the players, their expectations are, actually, we suck in the best of 1 format. We're a team that actually grows. We're actually a team that gets better because we identify our mistakes so quickly that we can rectify them and fix them coming into game 2. And I feel like SKT is the first team that is truly pushing G2 to the limit that they might need to demonstrate.
Well, listen, it's the first time they've lost a game in a best of 5 with this roster. They 3-0'd Origin twice. Round 2, and then in the finals for LEC. And obviously coming into this best of 5, game 1 did not go well. However, we have seen the bounce back. We have seen a significant gold lead, 3,500 gold as we're approaching 15 minutes. And for G2 Esports, that's a good sign. Just to give you guys an update, our technicians are working on it, and I don't have an exact time, so I don't want to make promises, but they are looking at the problem. We'll get back to the game as soon as it is resolved.
And the growth for SKT Point as an organization definitely stands true. We remember this in 2015, 2016, and onwards in 2017, but it didn't necessarily have to map one-to-one to this roster that doesn't have that effective core. When you saw SKT, it was always Faker, Bang, Wolf, Coma.
Yeah.
And while Coma is still around the org, he's not involved on stage. He's not as involved in the pick bans. Zephyr, previously of a Freak of Freaks, is now their drafting coach. So it's only Faker now. So there was no kind of requirement for them to fit into this organizational narrative. And yet, it was on display throughout the course of LCK Spring. SKT reinvented themselves multiple times, settled in the playoffs against Kingzone and also Griffin as that more reactive team. They started reactive. They quickly threw out that playbook and got more aggressive. Where does it all lead? Who knows?
Well, it leads to Vi, Hecarim, and Rakan jumping into G2 Esports, and we are back on the Rift, ladies and gentlemen. As we're approaching the 15-minute mark, you can see the 4 turret plates have already been secured by G2 Esports. They're pushing in the bottom lane, and look at SK Telecom all in the top lane.
So this is something you were talking about before, Papa Smithy. From the side of G2, they were focusing all their resources towards the bot side of the map. They had the double teleport. It was very easy for them to play around this lane. And now, with the Rift Herald, they know they want to try and utilize it early. So they're going to try and trade towers as Jankos gets collapsed on.
All right, Jankos is in a little bit of trouble. He's already flashed. Caps waiting in the wings as Faker was caught out by the Sedge ultimate. Tower falls in the bottom lane. That's the first. That's a 4,000 gold lead temporarily. SK Telecom may continue this siege as there's a trade in the mid lane. Faker and Caps now going toe-to-toe. Here comes Khan. Onslaught of Shadows is available, and Jankos does not have the prison. Dark Binding goes wide, and Whirling Death comes out as well. G2 Esports have the numbers to fend off the pressure, and now G2 are grouping in the mid lane.
Moving around the map for SKT got them out of the scenario where they were being repeat dive. That's why they changed their battle lines and go topside to use what they have, the guaranteed advantage of the Rift Herald, and also to try to contest the defensive position where G2 just hadn't spent a lot of time around that top blue side. So I think overall, going even in trades when we, again, outline the eventual future of the team fights is pretty smart from SKT, but G2 can reset here and regroup easily.
Yeah, I agree. I think SKT, they made the smart decision here. It's the best scenario for them to not fall too far behind. Now, the game that I like to play with every Draven game is how many stacks does the Draven have? He's currently sitting at about 415 to 420. Whoa. Right? He is sitting on so much potential gold that he has not quite secured yet. And that could be the moment that you were talking about, Papa Smithy, that one defining point in the next couple of minutes that could swing this game in either direction.
And that's kind of the moment that I look to give confidence that this 3,000 gold lead can accelerate further. You cannot deny the pick or the team fight power that SK Telecom have available to them. Ocean Drake will be up in about 2.5, maybe 3 minutes. Baron a little bit after that, but both teams pretty content just pushing out these waves, and nobody's really pushing deep into enemy territory.
What I can deny about SKT is their item timings are still future. We don't have a Trinity Force. We don't have any item on Faker. It's 2 building blocks of his core items. Essence Reaver is there, but everyone else is still on the precipice of the items you need to really make that oomph work when you dive after the Draven. So for now, SKT, who have in the past, very recently, been very good at choosing their times, still need to weather the storm a little bit longer.
All right, looking at the minimap, Caps is picking a fight with Khan, while the rest of SKT are trying to defend mid lane. I correct this, SKT are killing Caps. He simply bit off more than he could chew and got collapsed.
Now the goal here for Caps, what I imagine, is that he saw that they had pressure in mid lane, so he assumed that they could push bot. And if 3 members show up bot, then maybe he can trade it for a tower in mid. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case because G2 lost their minion wave, which means that he was ultimately overextended in the bot lane, and it was an easy kill picked up from the side of SKT.
And that engage range that will work against Draven in teamfight coming out of Fog of War is also going to be very, very strong. So he's able to get that pick there. Facing onto Teddy, doesn't get bound, only just.
Yeah, not this time.
The Nico and the Akali, and for the side of SKT, they're still waiting for those crucial item spikes that you were talking about before, Papa Smith.
That's right, Trinity Force still not purchased, a lot of gold ready to be spent, and we should never lose track of the fact that Perks is also on the precipice of a huge cash-in. That snowball of an item, it just feels like the next, or I should say the first time we see a true engagement, the winner of that is very well set up to take the game.
So we are finally back into game, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, very close across the board, 5-4 in kills. The most recent kill was picked up in the bot lane, catching Caps out of position. A lot of teleports and summoner spells are up and ready to go. So it's only a matter of time before we see that next thing.
I want to talk about that Caps death on the right-hand lane because that will be his 7th isolated death. As far as the MSI group stage is gone, but I won't get a chance to, as there is going to be an engagement in the mid lane. Mickey's forced to flash defensively as the Black Shield's already been used. Jankos has already thrown out that ultimate. Just to go back, the tower will still stand. And just to mention, Caps obviously getting caught out and punished. He felt he had a little bit more breathing room. And those are the types of mistakes you've got to be very, very careful with at this level of play. SKT unable to find the kill on that engage.
The breathing room is at a very low level. We saw, for example, the Black Shield used on perks, meaning that Mickey had flash. Mickey had flashes.
All right, that's a very big engagement. The Assaulted Battery comes down. Caps is caught out and killed where he stands. Now, the Dragon is still being focused and secured. A kill for a Dragon is sometimes worth, but look at the Pop Blossom. Faker stole that one. He's already found another onto Mickey. Mickey used the flash earlier. A Dragon for 2 kills is a bit more controversial.
That was ultimately a massive mistake from Caps. He tried to clear out a ward where he did not have priority. The rest of SKT had regrouped behind their tower. G2 members were on the Drake, and SKT now utilized this window to secure themselves 2 kills, a mid-tier 1, and close that gold gap.
And Vedius was a bit of an unforced error, because remember, we saw the Morgana being forced to flash because they didn't have vision around the bot side river just a moment earlier. So it should have been 1+1, and that area would also be one where he could potentially be taken down. So the flow-on effect is a lot more immediate gold injected onto SKT, and the map state reversed a bit.
And the one thing you will note as well on this minimap, just as we're getting into the fight, you'll see how the rest of SKT are all grouped up towards the top side, but then Faker actually teleports to this ward right behind the rest of the team. That allows then SKT to know that they can continue for this fight because they're going to have a numbers advantage. So Mickey in this situation chooses to give up his life so that Wonder can walk away with his life.
A bit of a team fight preview too. To me, the most high value ability to steal with that Sylas ult will be the on-hit Nico ultimate. Ability power being stacked by Sylas, the potency of the burst means he could either dive and make that work or use it to peel for the Zyme.
Man, there's going to be so many interesting team fights, especially with all the options to build. I mean, if Faker steals the Soul Shackles, that's going to be hugely impactful as well. We've got 2 items now picked up for Teddy. He's got the Rapid Fire Cannon and the Essence Reaver. Rage Blade and Blade of the Ruined King sitting on the side of Wonder, who is still up 30 CS, by the way. He had a very strong early laning phase into Khan's Hecarim. And as it stands, I think that recall just finished from Mickey.
You'll notice as well that G2 actually have pushing top and bot right now. That's why Perks used his Whirling Death to clear out the mid wave so that G2 could just relieve the pressure, and now they actually have a good opportunity to reset, spend some of their gold, and pick up the items. You'll notice the Infinity Edge now done for the Draven, and the Rage Blade completed for Wonder as well.
A little bit of an exchange here. Caps has already used the perfect execution. Goes all the way back in with the flip. 5-point strike. Picks up a kill into Mata. Now Jankos looking for the stun. That's a double kill for Caps. He flashes over the wall. But here comes Khan. Charges into him for devastating effect. Khan takes down Caps as the mid lane tower is being focused. Protobell from Faker just to clear the wave. Dark Binding will connect into Khan. And he gets taken down. On hit Nico running amok. G2 Esports wait for the minion line to conga in, and they might get some more damage on the tower.
And remember what we just talked about. G2 had priority on the side lanes. So the moment SKT split up to go and control it, that is when G2 strike. They found another pit.
Mickey fires the Dark Binding from out of vision, and Faker is caught out. Another tower and a gigantic lead for G2.
And these decisive picks are reminiscent of what we saw in the Pike game that G2 turned around. Speaking of...
All right, he's going to flash over, get caught out by the Vi ultimate, throws out the stand aside. Dark Shield, or Black Shield rather, will help out. But Summoner Spell blown, and 005. No license to kill for Perks yet, waiting to cash in on that Draven passive.
And it's stacking up bigger and bigger. The gold lead overall is 5,000 gold, and the swing would be insane if Perks to pick up a kill. SKT had just found some picks to slow down G2's advance, but that slowing down was very short-lived.
And this is one of those situations where Caps' sacrifice was definitely worth it for G2. Trading a 2-for-1 and taking out the bot lane enabled so much control for G2 to then push in towards SKT's half of the map, and now they're the ones playing on the back foot. So you can see here, Caps utilizing the ultimate to close the gap, and then he's diving onto the duo.
Now, we were talking about how if G2 opened up with an aggressive play, that would really behoove them at this point. Caps shows the ultimate aggression between turrets. He gets back up from Jankos, but when SKT came, you thought there could be a turnaround. It was not.
Beautiful stuff there from Caps, and Jankos with the assist, but then we see the power of Mickey as well, landing two very crucial bindings. First one onto Khan, the second one onto Faker, enables G2 to now propel their gold lead back to about 5k.
5,500 gold to be specific. 4 towers to 3, 2 dragons to 1, 9 kills to 7. Every metric in favor of G2. And the gold advantage is the only one that is significant right now, but Klid has picked himself up that Guardian Angel. He's 3, 1, and 2 on that frontline Vi, and G2 Esports are now starting to group around, pushing Vision in the right-hand quadrant towards what looks to be the bottom inner turret. Teleport's available for Wonder, but he's actually sticking grouping with the team, so G2, they want to fight, Papa Smithy.
And the defensive positioning from SKT is okay because they have control over the Baron. They're not worried about G2 putting a train on it and taking it down quickly. The Drake spawning very shortly. SKT in full defensive position, and G2 walking up.
Ooh, here comes the Marta engage.
All right, that's at least a knock-up onto 1. That's potentially going to be a dead AD carry. Not yet. Caps actually manages to escape with his life. Klid's GA has been popped, and now Wonder is trying to solo out Khan. Onslaught of Shadows available, but it may need to get used defensively. Finally cashing in on the Draven passive. Pop Blossom comes up, will not find a stun. G2 Esports have got themselves one quick kill, and they forced SKT back.
Perks picks up 1,369 gold off the back of that kill. The stacks have finally been cashed in. He's sitting at almost 12,000 gold total, and now G2 are posturing around the Baron.
Klid is dead, but they do have a ward on the Baron, so we will not see G2 move over to that. Big pick there. Faker's actually in a huge flanking position, but who's flanking who?
Yeah, exactly. Hijack and Flash is available for Faker. Dark Binding will root him down. Pop Blossom is available, and G2 do not fight into Fog of War. I respect the patience this time around, content with the gold leads.
And the gold lead spiked so big. That's the Draven passive being cashed in, that huge asset climbing up a ceiling. SKT continue to back up, but G2 are in a really comfortable spot now. And while SKT has that initiation, one initiation goes wrong, the game could just end.
And I believe that it was SK2 that tried to start the fight, as you were talking about, Papa Smithy. Their eyes were set on trying to kill Caps. Sitting on the front line, they thought that if they could just execute him, they would create a numbers advantage. And look how far up he's pushed in the lane. The eyes from SKT are like, hey, we can go for this. We can lock him down. If we kill him before he gets in the Shroud, then we've got it. So they go in. It's very telegraphed. But then notice this black shield that comes out from the side of Mickey. Flash in, just enough to keep him alive. And now it's Klid who's overextended.
And Khan's actually caught trying to come in for a further flank. It would have been disconnected anyways. It wasn't like Khan was complete on point with his flank timing. So SKT over-pursue from behind. And usually it ends up with more negatives than positives.
And of course, because Perks cashes in, he's already picked up the Phantom Dancer. So within about 2 and a bit minutes, Edge, Phantom Dancer, Bloodthirster, and crucially, you can see all of the stopwatches. One for Jankos, Caps, as well as Perks. And I'm taking a look on the side of SKT. It is only Faker right now that has one.
And what we want to see from G2 is for them to parlay what we see from regular season G2 in a scenario like this. Keep their side laner in the side lane. Nico has itemized for the 1v1. Keep her there while playing the Baron game. Don't just roll up for a team fight, sort of thing that kind of proved to be IG's undoing.
Exactly that, Papa Smithy. This is the mid-game fans wanted to see, but now Caps may have been caught once again.
Oh, Caps manages to use that E to get out to safety. Manages to do so. Jankos throws down the ultimate as well. Caps level 15, not yet tier 3 ultimate. Turns his attention to Klid. Here comes Jankos, Perks and Mickey trying to make their way in. Wonder's going to be a little late to the party. Tady's coming in from the backside of the fight as the Onslaught of Shadows splits up G2 Esports. Klid goes down though. It's a trade as now Marta's taken out. Damage onto Mickey. 2 for 1 thus far. But G2's death ball is rolling through SKT. Khan gets a devastating charge to reply one back. 3 for 2. G2 still in the advantageous position. Tady's able to escape away from Wonder for now, and Wonder does not continue the chase. It is a matter of time here. Caps is looking to hunt down Khan. That's a flash forward into the 5-point strike. And just to get a couple more autos, and G2 with a convincing win.
G2 in position, and their target selection was more straightforward. Teddy had to open with ultimate to contribute any fight onto the team fight. With so many members down, G2 feeling strong enough to go onto Baron. And remember, this is on-hit Nico. She shreds Baron.
Now Clid has just respawned. The pings are coming down. Marta and Clid are on their way, but can they secure the objective in time?
I don't think so. It's going to be too late unless Teddy can do something magical. No Featherstorm available. 2,000 hit points. This is an easy secure on the Baron. Teleport is being channeled now by SKT. G2 are retreating. They get the Baron and they get Faker's teleport. That is monumental, along with their 9,000 gold lead.
And I want to give props to SKT with how close this fight was, considering how much Teddy was actually zoned out of the fight. So notice Marta makes the initial mistake where he dodges out from the binding. Fortunately, he has a teammate there to get out with the E. Then Caps hard commits onto Clid, knowing that he's there. And it looks like once again that Caps is caught out of position. This is when the fight really kicks off.
Caps had used the second part of the ultimate. That's why they felt safe to go. But notice Teddy, like you mentioned, take the long way. And then Mickey just ult him and keep him out of the fight longer. The Draven eventually falls down, but it's kind of the dying breath of Khan to take down Perks. And overall, the numbers game just comes up G2 and eventually nets them a Baron.
But in that choke point, Faker was also just doing so much damage. He was so valuable to the team that if they'd had a little bit more of a front line, if they could soak up a little more damage, they could have done more. But here's Faker.
Yeah, exactly. Faker's going to get run down here. Caps and Wonder looking to chase him out. Caps teleported in for this. Stolen Pop Blossom will not find a target. That would have hurt if it had hit. And Faker turns around, gets some lifesteal while that's going on. 3 members of G2 pushing down the bottom lane. Clid gets caught out by the prison from Sejuani. Now Jankos and Mickey continue to chase forward. Unstoppable onslaught used defensively. The tower is secured in favor of G2 Esports. They've got themselves the advantage once Wonder teleported in. Now the tower is being focused, and Caps will usher the mid lane minions to the inhibitor turret as well.
With the Baron buff on top of G2, who already sit at a monumental gold lead, SKT are just not strong enough to challenge them, and they're pushing onto the Nexus.
G2 Esports in a numbers advantage for 20 more seconds. Caps has no ultimate available. There goes the Feathers. They're out and in. Marta's already running for his life. That's a shutdown onto Wonder. There is a reply. At least the GA is now secured as Clid's gone down. 8 seconds for Faker. Watch the death timers. Draven manages to get his second kill of the game, I believe, as now the Nexus turret is being focused. Faker is alive. He's back and in the fight. G2 Esports with Baron empowered. They haven't backed away yet. Spinning axes will connect, and the teleport now being channeled by Khan. Unstoppable onslaught's not available, but it might not be needed. That's an interrupt. Devastating charge delivers Perks into the back line. There goes Faker, chasing down the Perks. Perks stays alive for now. Can't find the next axe. All of a sudden, though, it's a 1-for-1 support for AD. Jankos, as well as Caps, get themselves a reply back. Now Caps turns his attention to Khan. Faker's running low. He needs to get some regen. Whoa! He is popped by Caps. Caps is throwing out every single ability and turning his attention to Khan. It's a quadra kill for Caps and G2.
G2 Esports hold the line as the rest of SKT mount one last defense, but it is not enough. G2 look to equalize the series.
12,000 gold advantage as a dark binding from Mickey should just about seal the deal. Caps goes all the way to the steps of the fountain for a pentakill as G2 equalize the series at 1-1.
And that means that we have oh so much to play for. They're going to kill some minions. It's going to take their time in ending this game. G2 Esports come out, they're bold, and they deserve their victory.
And the